What's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of the Fatherhood Village podcast. I am Dale Holloway here with Kev Hick. We are your TFV hosts. Listen, this episode we have right here, we have a special guest. All right, special guest alert. We're going to have a very fruitful conversation about the importance of reading to our children. All right. So before we head into that, I'm going to get with the man that never sleeps. Kev Hick, what's going on with you, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. Blessed and highly favored. All of those things, man. Positive energy only. So we good over here, baby. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Same energy over here, man. You know, we got a little bit of sunlight over here in Alaska. So it's a great day. It's a great
Yeah.
day. Clear skies, got the kids out. They did their thing. So, the nights won't be as hectic, got the energy rushed out of them. So
Right.
we
Right.
set. We set, man. But
Taking care of
yeah,
things.
so we don't want to keep too much of anyone's time, and we're gonna get right into it. We have a best-selling author here to join the show with us to have this conversation. We're going to talk about the books he released and his pathway to education. He's a graduate of a master's degree in education administration. He lives in North Carolina with his beautiful wife and 3 children. So before we had this great conversation. We want to hear from you, man. We have Ruben Watson on the show. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Blessed to be in this space with fathers, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate your podcast too, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate your podcast.
Absolutely,
We appreciate
absolutely,
you, man. We
man.
appreciate people in the line of work that you in, man. I think it's very important that especially black men have representation, in this educational space, in this reading space, and making sure that this becomes part of our culture and our narrative as well. So now we appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, some questions to lead us on. First of all, we wanted to ask you what kind of set you into this pathway of education. Was it something that sparked you as a kid? Was it something that you kind of stumbled on and
Yeah.
wanted to do more as you got older? Kind of walk us down that story, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I live in North Carolina, man. I'm originally from Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, to be specific. People don't know where it is. Same city where Floyd Mayweather is from. So,
Okay.
I grew up, southeast side of Grand Rapids, single family home. My mom's, and I had 3 brothers, 1 sister, and my dad was, kind of in and out of prison. So my mother, she was put in a situation where she, put her family first and took on multiple jobs to provide for us. And as I grew up as a young man, I was put in a situation where I had to make some choices. Whereas my mom, like I said, she worked a lot. So on the weekends when I wasn't in school, she couldn't really afford a babysitter, so she used to drop us off at the library. And the library was like, it was kind of like an oasis to me. Like every book was a different world. They had computers at the library. We didn't have computers at our home. Like I had friends that had computers. I was like, you had a computer in your house, you was rich to me, because I was like, I don't know what that is. So my pathway to education really started, school. Obviously academically, I was pretty good. Wasn't like the most gifted kid, but I could pass if I was interested. I could pass the class. But my love for books and reading and education began weekends at the Grand Rapids Public Library, just reading books because my mom had to work and she'd pick me up. I have like a stack of books with me, and it just really started this journey for me where I became so interested in reading books, and it really helped me out academically because I was able to comprehend, spell, and succeed a little bit more than some of my peers at the time when I was in Grand Rapids Public Schools, which is an urban school district. So I want to, there's a lot of things that happen between then and now, me becoming an educator, but I feel like me becoming an author really started with, just having access to different books. And I'll be very direct, black books written by black authors. Walter Dean Myers, that was one of the first authors that really inspired me because, everybody knows him now. I feel like, he passed away, God bless the dead, for his movie like Monster. He released this on Netflix. I don't know if y'all seen it. It was pretty good, but he had a book that inspired me. It was called The Mouse Rap, and it was the first book I read that was about a black kid, but it was written in a rhyme, because I'm like, I grew up in the hood, so like hip hop was everywhere, but I never read a book about, hip hop that was written in a rhyming context. So once I read that, man, I was like, that kind of led to me being more invested to understanding and following hip hop. And I got a little older, and my mom, she let me get some, some of those rap hip hop tapes with the parental advisory sticker on it. So, that kind of created my journey where, wow, poetry, rhyming, all of that just really, really sparked something in me. And it really gave me a motivation to, continue to write myself, but also to be inspired by writers that, rhyme in a rhyming pattern. And that kind of connects to my books as well.
Great. That's an interesting, like I said, segue into our conversation. And and I kind of had some of the same thoughts when I discovered, more books, being in the library, checking out books from libraries and just seeing the plethora of books, the levels.
Yeah.
Kev, you know about the downtown library.
Yeah.
So it was just, it was almost
what city,
as
though?
if,
You gotta let me know.
yeah, Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we both from there. So
nice.
Yeah, so it was just, like I said, it was just so much to discover, so much to see. My mother, almost every weekend, probably less frequent than that, but we would go to the library and we'll check out books. She'll, pretty much as many as I wanted to, but I was trying to, whether about 2 weeks you get, Kev, 2-3 weeks before you got to recheck it out or whatever. So I get about 4 or 5, you know what I'm saying? And but it was fun, like I said, to kind of to go off of kind of what you said. You had that extra time, that idle time, and like I said, opened your mind up to so many things, and the pictures, the illustrations, the words, how they connected, and it walks you through, like I said, a new world, a new space.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and it's free.
Right. Just get your card. Make sure your card ain't expired.
Yes, I think my love for reading developed a little bit different than both of y'all. So I was a latchkey kid. I had a keychain around my neck from the time I was in first grade. Like, I was coming home. It might be an empty house. It might not be. So, I think the library would have been a great place for my mom to take me. No disrespect, but she did. I was doing my thing. She was doing hers. Yeah. But what happened was, I felt as a kid that the library was overwhelming. I felt like I don't know if it's, what is it called? The Dewey Decimal, whatever
decimal system.
The Dewey Decimal System. So I felt like that was overwhelming. They added math to something that I was a very good reader, but you done threw some numbers at me and some alphabetical order crap. Now I'm like, listen, I'm good with this. I don't need all this. You know what I'm saying? So that threw me off. Even though I was a great reader, I didn't discover a love for reading until about 4th grade, when I realized that every once in a while a teacher might assign me a book that I actually like. Most of the time that wasn't the case, right? I had a mature mind, and as a kid, they send you, they put you in a position where you're reading all this crap that is either too fantastical or way too unrelatable for a person growing up, a 4th grader in the projects who has real adult issues as the 4th grader. I couldn't relate to most of that stuff that they would make us read. But one book, this book called Hatchet, I can't even remember who wrote it.
I remember that book. That's a classic.
Kid's going to visit his father in like Alaska or something, and the pilot has a heart attack, and he got to survive.
That movie. Man, it's like a movie. My bad.
Yeah,
the movie like a movie.
But that was the first book I read where I was like, okay, I really like to read. I'm not just good at reading, because I was always good at reading. That was my gift, but I didn't have an interest in it. But when I read Hatchet, I related to him, because sometimes I felt like I was surviving, I related to his story because we had to figure out what we was eating sometimes. It was different. So because I related to it, I was like, okay, maybe I'm still going to cheat on these book reports. I'm going to do that. But every once in a while, when they find me a book I like, instead of going to, I was a kid with a computer because my mom's boyfriend at the time developed computers. So I had 2 computers in my house. And so but
He
that
was
was because
balling in my life. I was like, whoa.
we was in the
Right.
project, but we had a computer. So, that was
That's
our
Okay.
thing.
wild.
So I knew how to get on the internet and look up a book. And so I would cheat on my book
Wow.
report by getting on the internet in the 4th and 5th grade and looking up the summary of the book enough to where I could speak on it and pretend that I read it. But
Okay.
when I read Hatchet, it actually told me that wait, somebody's going to write something I like. Let me just focus on those things. So I cheated on every book
Mm.
report from there to graduation that I didn't like. I just went to Spark Notes or wherever, but I was always reading.
Oh, you
I
was
was
the
just
first
reading.
hustler then. You was figuring.
Right. He hustling books, hustling knowledge.
I was looking at Wu-Tang on the weekends. You like, what's this book report looking about?
Yeah,
Right.
I've been spark noting book reports since I was in elementary school, but I was always reading. I was always reading the things I loved, and that never
Yeah.
stopped and it never ceased. And in my adulthood, I discovered whole new genres of things that I love. So, reading has
Yeah.
been very important to me, and it's increased my level of communication, my wisdom, knowledge, and
Mhm.
understanding about how the world works. And it's also been a really
Absolutely.
good outlet to me because sometimes I needed to be able to escape through someone else's imagination, whether it was fiction or
Yeah.
a true story that just wasn't my story. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's as much as I hated the library, and I'm really not a library person to this day. I can appreciate it now, now that they're not forcing the Dewey Decimal System and I'm not getting quizzed or tested on it. But also because I found that there's something there for everybody, including me. You know what I'm saying? So
For sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Yeah, I guess my mom was with me most of the time until I figured it out, or I asked the librarian, "Hey, I'm looking for this
Yeah.
book," or like,
Yeah.
they would help me out. So yeah, I would kind of, not have to deal with that headache of trying to find things and giving up. But I feel you though, Kev. I
And
feel
I was
that.
definitely on that team. Like, I wasn't going through the Dewey Decimal. I'm like, yo, lady, you sitting at your desk. Let me talk to
You're
you. Like,
not
I
doing
got real
nothing.
familiar with the librarian. They was like, we know what you
Right.
coming for.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They wasn't helping us at all. It was like, the Dewey Decimal System, young man. You need to learn it. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not even. This ain't even my spot for real. I was just here because I had to be. But
Right.
to
I'm here
this
tomorrow.
day,
I get back.
to this day, my wife's like, "Hey, you want to go to the library?" I'm like, "No." I go to Barnes and
Damn.
Noble.
Not even with the kids.
I go to Barnes and Noble. I won't go to the
You
library,
know,
but I go to
see,
Barnes
that's
and
what I'm
Noble.
about to say. I
He
said,
ain't
you a
messing
Barnes
with
and
no
Noble
used
brother. I'm gonna
book.
buy this.
Yeah. I'm Barnes and Noble all day, boy. Barnes and Noble all day. Not the library. And our homeless live at the library too, so it wasn't always a
Yeah.
pleasant experience. I don't know how many
Right.
homeless you had in your library, but our library was the
Oh
living room
no,
of the
they
homeless.
was there. I remember, like, they was there, but it's like I knew where to go. It was a big library, so it's like, all right, all the homeless dudes gonna be on like second, third floor. So I'm gonna be in the kids area and the teens area because they can't congregate over there, or the security guard gonna kick them out. So I'm like,
Yeah,
keep your distance because
yeah,
they do be chilling.
yeah. They be
Right.
really chilling.
Right.
I have an intense aversion to smell, and it just wasn't working out.
I don't even want to read no more here.
Yeah, between that Dewey Decimal System and the homeless, love and respect, I couldn't do
Right.
it.
Right.
They wasn't at Barnes and Noble though,
That's crazy. So Rube, let's talk about
sir.
your book.
Yeah.
Give us the title and give us
Yeah.
kind of the inspiration that
So
was
my
sparked
book is
behind that.
my book is it's called Friendly Skies and Sunny Days. It's a book I wrote, in honor of my children first and foremost. It's based on my children. It's my second book I published. I released it about a month ago. It's on Etsy, it's on Amazon, but I wrote it for the simple fact that there's a lot going on, and I know y'all dealing with it too. With COVID, being in this pandemic was the reason I wrote this book because, when things start shutting down, sports shut down. I was like, whoa, I never seen, the NBA get canceled. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Going the only place I could go over the past like March 2020 when it really popped off was to the Walmart to pick up groceries because I wasn't going in, you know what I mean, to the park. And, that kind of became a sacred space for me and my family. We like to go out anyway. I used to live in Michigan. Like I said, I moved down south because I really like, warmer weather climates. We are a tropical people, But at the end of the day, it became the only space I could go with my kids outside of my home, where it was like a place that we actually look forward to. Because we stuck in the house. I got a 6-year old, an 11-year old, and I now have a 12-month old. But just being in that space unrestricted. You don't have to wear a mask at the park. There's a lot
Yeah.
of like I started, I started becoming fascinated with just taking my kids to different parks across the state of North Carolina, just to have that experience, just to have time and for them to play, and just for us not to be inundated with just being at home and looking at our phones and being on the computers or tablets all day. So the book is just a love letter to nature, and it's just a really written from the perspective. I wrote it in a rhyming pattern, like I said, but it's more
Mm.
about just capturing an experience and multiple experiences my children had from just going to the park, chasing butterflies, oh, there goes a deer, there goes a bunny. Like my kids just being excited about being outdoors. Sometimes it's just kicking the ball, but the story is just written from a perspective of my children enjoying nature. So I'm not in the book. It's really about what my kids do at the park and how they do what they do and what type of animals they see and things they see as they just go to different parks.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Nice. I like that. I like that.
So,
Kev, how often do you read to your children? Is it sort of a ritual or a regular scheduled thing, or is when you can fit the time in, or is that something that your wife takes care of most of the time?
So Riley's 4 and he's autistic. So Riley is a lot less interested in us reading to him than Noah. Noah
mm,
Okay.
Noah learned to read when he was like 2, like
wow.
2.5. He has in our old house that we just sold, his wall was a chalkboard. So we were teaching
Mm,
him how to read, write, and spell, right? And so his wall was full of either words or sentences or phrases that he was practicing reading, and it was from the ceiling to the floor. I don't know how many hundreds of words, but he had to read that, and he would practice it every morning, reading with himself, and then at night, every night, I would read him a story, to 1 to 3 stories, depending on how long they were. So it was a huge ritual for me and Noah as he was growing up. Riley has a different attention span. He only wants to do what he wants to do. So,
mm,
um, and just autism is one of those things that your child creates a very unique set of things that are acceptable, okay, or enjoyable, and everything else is just not. So,
Mm.
and so right as of now, Riley hasn't picked up a love for reading with me. Like he is surrounded by books, and he picks them up and he'll look at them by himself, and that's
mm,
his thing. And every once in a while, we'll come over and we'll try to give him a couple of words, just enough before he puts us out or physically pushes us away.
mm,
But we haven't stopped. We understand that his process is different than Noah, his older brother, who loved to read and who took a lot of pride in being able to read because he had speech issues. And so the only time he really felt like he sounded great, and the only time he felt good, like really really great at something, was reading.
wow.
Even when he was in first grade, while he had speech problems, um, he could, when it was time to read, the class listened to Noah because he was the only one that was on the second grade. He had done the whole second grade list before first grade started. And so by the
Oh,
time first grade started, when it was time to read anything, that was when he came alive. And I always wanted him to have that because I always felt smart when it was time to read. When it was time to read, I could be the village idiot in math class, and I could feel like a piece of dirt. And I
mm,
would get into like English or literature, whatever class, or we'd be reading Hatchet or whatever book. And when
mm,
it was time to read out loud, as dumb as I could feel in another class like math,
mm,
I was the kid who no one could keep up with in reading. Right.
Wow.
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I felt like that was my superpower. My comprehension and my reading was my
yep,
superpower. I knew the value of that. So for me, even with Riley, again, we don't stop. We just have to do it at his pace. But with Noah, I was able to give him that gift of just being great at something before he even got to school and realized that people would be better than him at certain things, and he would feel inadequate in other ways. I gave him something that, he was able to go and feel not only adequate but superior in some ways, which balanced out his school experience when he
Yeah.
didn't feel like, oh well, other kids understand me when I talk. I'm not good at talking or formulating my words. He's the best reader. And so I was very proud to have given him that, because I didn't know what challenges he had in front of them, but he took a lot of pride in reading. And so, like I said, he started at around 2.5 because we would read to him every night.
Wow.
He would read to us. And so now, like I said, he's in second grade, but I don't know what he probably reads at a 5th or 6th grade level. But
wow,
like I said, that's his thing. And so it's important to me because communication is important to me. Comprehension is important to me. And I knew that it was a superpower for me. And as much as I could, and as much as I can, I pass that on to them. At this point, Noah doesn't need me to read to him. He needs me to assign him books. So we can, so now we're actually going into a new phase. He's homeschooled, like traditionally. His mom is his teacher. So and he just started school last week. So now this is book report year. So this year I'm gonna give him a book, and he doesn't have Spark Notes. He's not familiar with it.
Not yet.
So me and his mom actually are creating his reading curriculum now, in which instead of us reading with him or to him, because he's beyond that, even as a second grader, he'll need to give us a thorough book analysis of what he read and what's going on. And, obviously we'll read it first. And so I think we're changing the game for him just because he is a little bit advanced at reading, and it has helped his speech a lot. So, yeah, man, reading is fundamental, man.
Fundamental.
It is fundamental, man. It don't get no more simple than that, man.
Can I step in on that one though? Because
go ahead, right ahead.
I got to put my educator hat on, because what Kev said is really important. Like, you as a kid, you got to take yourself back to 5th, 4th grade. Like, if you could read, you was like the man in school, like for a moment. Like, and then if you couldn't read, it was like, oh, here come Marshawn. He about to stutter. He don't know his words. Like, you would, like, in my school, I grew up in the hood. Like they used to clown kids that couldn't read, and it was like, like, dang, please don't read. Like, we used to crack jokes, but at the same time, like, when you have an opportunity now as a man, as a father, I'm like, I put as many books. Like, my kids have libraries from the day they're born. Like, for my son, my third son, Kingston, I said, for the baby shower before he was born, I said, don't send us money, don't send us clothes, send us books. Like, we want to build this library up. And I have a library in his nursery, and I read to him. I read to him when he was in mom's womb. So, what Kev said was really important. Like, you got to go at the pace of what your child is. Like, my other son, he's not really into reading unless it's like comic books. And I didn't learn that until, like, I sat down with him, and he was like, I don't want to read this. And I was like, all right, I got this Pokemon. He wanted to read it all day. So, just as a father, just learning your children's different learning styles and what sparks them, I feel like that's really what's most important. Like, that's phenomenal, man.
Yeah. And Noah's a collector. So he's very specific about having all of whatever's available in a particular pattern or style or author or so he had a few favorite authors, and so he had a giant library. Like, we didn't have to get him toys until he was like 6, and until he was 6 we just got him books. That's all we got him. And because he loved it, he wanted the whole series. The author did 12 books. If he liked the first one, he had to have the whole collection, and he read the whole collection. Even his baby books, his 2-year-old books, they're called Baby. That's the title usually, is Baby Does This, Baby Does That. He, at 2 years old, he had like 20 something baby books.
Yeah.
And we have to get him the whole collection. To this day, with his toys, he's the same way. If he gets one action figure and he knows others exist from the same series, you have to get him the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole set.
Yeah. So just making him earn it has been the creative challenge for us. But books have just been a big part of what he anchors himself in, and that self-esteem that he has, and knowing that, well, we all have our inadequacies, but we all have our strengths. He learned that through feeling inadequate, and just in the way he communicates his words and chooses his words, by being great at math and being great at reading. He just feels like he understands the difference between him being stupid because someone tells him, and him just not being as good as someone. And for me, that was the most important, because my whole job here is to respect my son's needs by
Yeah,
giving him an opportunity to develop the strongest self-esteem that a man can have. But it starts early, right?
absolutely.
They always say it's easier to build strong men than to repair broken ones.
Absolutely.
And I found that reading has been something that strengthens him beyond measure, and so it's just been a huge part of how I raise him. And I can't wait to the day where my younger son comes into a place, and he's 4, so we got plenty of time. But I can't wait till he comes into a place where he figures out what he actually likes to read, so we can give him as much of that as he can handle, and hopefully grow his love for reading as well.
Hey, Rube. So,
Yeah,
with your master's degree in education administration, you actually taught K through
yeah,
12.
yeah.
Okay.
So
What
yeah.
specific grades were you just kind of where they
Um,
have you for most of your career so far?
I when I got my master's degree, I was preparing to be a principal, but throughout that
Okay.
time, I was, working with different school districts across Michigan, and you have to do like an internship of 100 hours. So I would pretty much shadow principals, and the principals would, put me in position to kind of like go to a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school in the district, and I would just spend the day like number one with the assistant principal or the principal, and sometimes the principal would be like, "Hey, I got meetings, so I want you to just follow this teacher." Um, but my experience, in that, let me know that I didn't want to be a teacher. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because it was something. You know what the education system is. It's so many variances in it, but just the number one thing I seen was the way in which teachers were kind of forced. Like, you got a lot of flexibility if you're in gym and art, but when it comes to like curriculum, you're teaching to a test. So,
Mm.
the constraints of understanding that just led to me wanting to do what I, currently do, where I work at a university where I'm able to work administratively and help support high schools through like college access and supportive resources rather than directly teach. But when I did teach, I taught as a substitute teacher in Lansing Public Schools, which is the capital of Michigan. And I was able to, I loved the kindergartens, first, second, K through 6, but that middle school, woo, them kids was challenging. They was throwing
That's a
gang
beast
signs
right
up
there.
with me. I'm breaking up fights daily, and I'm like, I'm going to the hood schools, but sometimes I go to the suburban schools too. It's a different energy. Um,
Mm.
but it just taught me the importance of being understanding the different spaces that you're in, but also the challenges of education, where you have a teacher who is in a classroom that's under resourced, and they have some students that speak English, some that don't, some students that are just phenomenal, like high performing readers, like Kev was talking about with his son, and then you have in the same classroom a couple kids that can't even spell, the word ice, and it's like this is second and
Mm.
third grade. So, I think education, it's not a one size fits all. It's a very it's a very tough environment and industry to navigate unless you have a very strong support. So, I learned it directly. I didn't want to be a principal because I went to get my master's to be, but it's like there's still opportunities for leadership, just to
Yeah.
support schools, which is what I do in college access, because it's really about being an educator. It's like you have to find where you fit into it. And I was like, you got to
Mm.
try it. So when I tried to be a teacher, I was like, I loved it. Like, I love sitting down with kids. But, once I got my first long-term teaching assignment, I was like, I have to teach just this. Oh, no, I can't do
Mm.
this. Like, not
Hmm. Yeah.
like,
Okay.
I'm too creative. I'm too spontaneous. And, my heart hurts for kids that I can't reach because of things going on at home, or because I just don't have enough capacity to really delve into them. Or sometimes I got to call the principal or the social worker. So, I think, even as a parent now, like, I'm very intentional with my conversations with my kids' teachers. Like, I don't care. My daughter's
Right.
in 7th grade. My son is in first. And I'm like, let's have a conversation so you can understand who they are, and how they learn, and that was something that I learned directly from just being a part of different Black parent groups here in Durham. Shout out to Village of Wisdom,
Okay.
which is it's a local nonprofit that does like parent research groups to kind of prepare parents to be more of advocates for their kids' education and learning experience.
Oh, that sounds
Excellent.
awesome. That sounds awesome.
Excellent. Peace. Do you think with the disparities, with the dichotomy between the suburban area schools and the inner city schools, and obviously with when kids go home, it's total, different dynamic,
Yeah,
different lifestyle, things of that nature. And you mentioned underfunding, under resourced.
yeah.
Because of those realities, do you think kids is kind of, they don't try hard enough because it's like, hey, it is what it is
Hmm.
do they feel a little hopeless? They don't feel like they want to reach for more than what's accessible at the time. Do you see like the difference in then,
Yeah,
this the energy as far as, being proactive and want to do more,
yeah,
and
yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I studied education. So like in my master's program, and there's always this narrative, and I'm sure you heard it, where it's always pitting black student performance rates against white students.
Mhm.
And that has something that troubled me because I'm like, we've always been stigmatized. We've always been put at this level of our performance as a whole of students is always white versus black. I mean, obviously, race. You can learn into that terminology like you want. Race, it is a race, right? But if you dig a little deeper on educational performance rates of black children and white children, you can't talk about education from those two aspects. There's also Asian children, and Asian children been beaten for the most part all races for many many
Right.
many years. But that's not spoken about, right? Because of the
Mhm.
system we live in and the influences and the media and all that. But when
Right.
I thought about the aspect of education, I don't think I'm not one of those guys that say you just money. If you throw $1 billion into all the hood schools, performance is going up. I think that's one of the areas, and you know what I'm saying. But I think just being a parent, I think that the outcome of our children is based on the parents. If the
Mhm.
Absolutely.
parent if the parents are not involved in the education of their children, the children are set up to fail. You throwing them to the wolves. So
Gotcha.
we can't depend, on school to educate our children. If the only education your children are getting is at school, you're doing it wrong. And I'm saying that to
Yeah.
every father. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
If you're just dropping
Yeah.
off, picking up, not investing, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of kids, like I said, I grew up in a single parent family home. My mom wasn't like going around putting me in different schools. But like I said, that dropping me off at the library was my factor. That was like, all right,
Yeah.
my mom may not have time to invest in me, but I can at least read these books. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
she did help me accountable when I came home when she had time. I'm not trying to put nothing against her, but I think the outcomes and the education of our children, because education starts at home. Like
It
your
does.
children learn to read based on what you put in their environment. Like if I said I put nothing but Nerf guns in my son's room when he was born, he'd be a good shooter by the time he's 3, right? Because he got Nerf
Yeah.
guns.
Yeah.
But like
That what
Kev
you do
said,
most of that. What you do best.
I mean, I got a couple of Nerf guns for my 6-year-old, but he got books too. So what I'm trying to say is, you got to put yourself in a position as a parent to be proactively involved. I do not depend on any teacher. No disrespect. It's an honorable profession to educate my child. That's on me. So what you learn in school is one factor, but life is a classroom. So if we're only just learning our
Yeah.
ABCs, I don't think that we're really adequately educating our children. Um,
Right.
but a lot of things I said, I don't know if I fully answer your question. It's just we just got to be actively involved. That's the bottom line. I think that is the factor. And for the children who don't have that, a strong influence from their parents, that's the one where I'm like, how can we help these students who are under resources and underprepared? So their parents may have educational issues. Like my dad dropped out of high school. He went to the streets, got his GED in prison. So I never leaned
Mm.
on him for anything educationally when he was out of prison. It was like, all right, go do your schoolwork. So it's a lot of factors. I think you got to understand the dynamic of the students. But since it's such a big population of students and only a few teachers, that's where the challenge comes in. So there's a lot of things that got to be revamped in education. But quite honestly, it's public education. So you get what you get unless you got the bread to put them in a better school.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
Absolutely.
there's a certain amount of intersectionality that we like. it's such a vast conversation that you can't even
Right.
have all of the
Lot.
statistical, like, for one, when compared black kids versus white kids, right? When we pretend we're the only two races, because for whatever reason in America we do this.
We
Yeah.
exist. It's only black and white people in America, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
When we compare black kids to white kids or black kids to non-black kids, we see this gap in reading, writing, arithmetic, right? But when you actually compare anybody in the poverty demographic to anybody outside of the poverty demographic, all of those numbers balance out. Turns out, poor white kids also suck at reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
Right?
I've never seen
And
a news story on that.
yeah, so 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 just like black on black crime, the education disparities have highlighted the weakest among black statistics for a very specific reason. But because I live in a district where they're trying to prove themselves not to be as inadequate as the surrounding suburban districts, some of these studies have come up. Like Dayton Public Schools have been like, wait a minute, y'all keep telling us about this, but these are the numbers, right? Because they trying to exonerate themselves, and the numbers actually lean toward. It is actually not a black and white line. It is impoverished. It's a poverty line and not poverty. People in survival mode obviously are taking in a whole different experience, learning different things at home, and have different issues. Like I described myself when I was a kid. We was in the projects. Before the projects, we was in a 1 bedroom. It might have been a 580 square foot 1 bedroom. My mama slept in the living room. Me and my brother slept in the 1 bedroom. Like, and my cousins and my uncles sometimes lived with us too. Like I had real shit going on. I didn't have the luxury of giving a damn about what was happening in school. That was all I cared about, was eating lunch in school, eating breakfast in school, and then getting home and trying to figure out if I could help my mom in any way, or if she was okay. You know, she suffered from alcoholism when I was little, so and I had adult issues. I didn't have time to worry about that crap. That just it was beneath me. And I think most impoverished kids don't have the luxury of a parent who's just aware enough to say, well, I could take them to a babysitter. I could let them hang out with themselves, or I could send them to the library. Right? Your mom knew better, and she did that.
Shout out to moms.
Yeah.
But a mother in survival mode has less time. Has less time to look over homework, to read stories, to do this, to do that. You're trying to make it from day to day, or survive the day-to-day traumas and issues that the parent many times is still dealing with while having young children. You know, you have babies having babies. So our education system always points to, that black versus white versus whoever else disparity. But when they actually look at who's performing impoverished or impoverished versus in not in survival mode, doing well enough, the line is financial, not racial. And that is an interesting study to do as an educational system, but we won't do that. That won't be a mass scale project because they like that disparity. Just like, and not to go long, but just like black on black crime, 90% of blacks are killed by blacks. You realize 87% of whites are killed by whites. Because
there we go.
and guess who? Guess who? 90% of Asians kill? Asians. Murder is about proximity.
The FBI released a report on that. And
I've been saying that since I was a kid. I was like, they live next door to each other. Who else are they gonna kill? They gonna go down the street and around the corner and kill them people. They don't know them people.
They don't know them.
Them people ain't in their parking spot. Them people ain't talking too loud. Them people ain't flirt with their mama or touch their little sister. So all that to say that, it's extremely important that to overcome some of these things that they tell us about ourselves, because these kids hear this. These kids hear, black kids aren't smart. Black kids can't read. Black kids can't write. They hear it. No one explains it to them, and no one definitely tells them, well, wait a minute, that's a poverty line. That's not a race line. You're not insignificant. You're not incapable because you're black. These are what they're responding to. They're feeding you who you are, and you need to decide who you are, right? And the reading gives you the power to decide, well, I won't be one of them. I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be that. And that's kind of how I took it. It was the only thing that I had control over that somebody told me I couldn't do. It's like, no, wait. I can be black and read well. I can be black and be smart. I can raise my hand and say some smart shit. I can do that. Let me make sure that I'm not kidding. And so I just wanted my son to have that opportunity, and I think that what your mom gave you was an amazing thing. And I know Deshar, we talked about this on another podcast. You know, us just reading and trying to equip our kids, give them a gift, give them a superpower, so that when they fall against their inadequacy, they know that they at least have some strength somewhere that they can draw some pride from. So it really matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, just the access piece, and like I said, with all the, with all the things and opposing and things that the impoverished communities have, blacks
Yeah.
more specifically, I think, like you said, it's still, that responsibility still lies with the parent, the guardians, the
Yeah.
grandmother.
The
It's a
uncles, the
collective effort.
cousins. Yeah.
Exactly, it's a collective
Yeah.
effort. So, though we stress the parents, it's about the village. You know what I mean? And my mother always gave credit to the village. She never took full responsibility or excuse me, full credit for the development of myself and how I was able to be educated, how I was raised to become the man I am. So like I said, everyone has to play a part in that. And I think with with the information age, things at our fingertips, I mean, we still see these poor communities with cell phones, tablets, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, Wi-Fi and all this stuff, you know what I mean? Like it's still reachable. These things that, are going to help influence our future generations, these things, because TikTok, you see it, this crate thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And most of that's going on in the hood, you know what I mean? So
don't
it's
do
like,
it, y'all. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm anti-crate.
Right. So
if you ain't making the basketball rim, you misusing the crate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So like I said, it's really about where our priorities are set. And I think parents really know, they have the wherewithal, like, hey, I know I didn't have much growing up. I had to deal with things outside of school. School wasn't that important, like Kev alluded to. So, you don't want that to reoccur with your children. You don't want them to have to, reinvent the wheel, or as far as knowing better and having to do better with what you have. So I think as long as we see the importance of getting them out of these situations that happen over and over again in our society, or at least in our community, someone has to step in. Someone has to let them know, okay, these are our issues. This is a way we need to move forward. Let's try it this way. Up, that didn't work. All right, let's go with this idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it. There's more than one way to skin a cat, because mom's working 2 jobs. You know what I'm saying? Then it falls in the lap of grandma. Grandma got to hug up on uncle and grandpa and say, hey, let's hey, unc, run to the library, grab a couple books. Let's get some better apps on this phone that she's using. You know what I'm saying? Let's program these things better. So that's kind of how I see it too. So
I think and I don't know how, I guess this conversation could go in a million different directions, but I was talking to a brother, the coach of my son's kindergarten basketball team, and he was telling me, because his daughter was on the team, and he's like, Brad, man, you don't even know, bro. Like I just stopped working third shift, or second shift or third shift. He said, man, I missed everything up until this point. So I figured I'd start coaching this team and get her involved and start making time for just us. He said, because I was working so much. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. So you were talking about people like to throw money at the school system. I too believe that that's not the answer, because if you throw money at the school system, I don't give a damn how shiny the book is. If you can't pull a focus and a give a damn into a child's heart about those things, because they go home to the wrong scenario, or their parents are themselves in the wrong scenario, right? Too busy. And he said, man, I can't believe how busy I was. I'm really ashamed. Like I'm I just want to be there, So I quit that job because I just need to be there.
Yeah.
And he remembered that, what mattered before was too late. But the thing is this, when he hit me, he said, well, I was working so much. Most of if we don't have a drug addict parent, we have parents who are working too much.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
that's an addiction.
Yes. And it's condition, it's addiction. But it also leads to your child being neglected. you
Yeah.
not getting that focus, right? Not getting
Yeah.
that intentional parenthood that we like. I look at everybody that I know is an amazing parent. Myself, Deshar, my friend Jesse, my friend Joey, my 4 best friends in the world, my friend Jimmy. We're all people who have, to some degree, financial education, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't even have to be like super well off or well paid to be financially fit. And
Yes,
if
sir.
and of the financially fit parents I know, all of our children have room to thrive, and we're all intentional about our kids' education because we have space. We're not in survival mode because our financial education has put us in a position where we don't have to overwork to survive.
Exactly.
So for me, I think that that's one of the secrets, not necessarily throwing money at the school system, but
Yeah.
throwing money into community financial education
I like
to
that.
such a degree that the parents don't have to either overwork or
Yeah.
struggle so bad that that struggle starts to rub off on that child, and if they lose their focus, or that parent doesn't lose the time that they should be in that kid's face, reading, writing with them, doing homework, going to parent teacher conferences, joining the PTA, all of those things that you do when you have the luxury to do because you're not in survival mode. We need to get
Yep.
our people out of survival mode, and that starts with financial education. So that's my magical fix for this. Our reading and
I'm
our
with
writing
that.
and our math disparities, because every man I know who has money in the bank account, every man I know who has a little bit of investments, every man I know who's smart enough to really navigate in the financial space outside of going to the bank and begging for some money, that
Yeah.
kid's doing well because he got time and she got time to be in their faces and giving them what they need, and they don't have to figure it out at 30.
Yeah.
But it starts with financial education of our parents. I wish we could do a big national initiative to financially educate the parents in these impoverished communities. You don't have to give them $1, but you can give them $1 million worth of game, and all of their kids will do better for it in school. I promise you that. But that's my
And
theory.
they gotta read books that educate them on that, right?
Yeah.
It goes
Absolutely.
back to the
Absolutely.
books.
But it
Yeah.
creates a love because now you got to go find the information, right?
Yep.
So now reading becomes culture in the household.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we just spend a lot of time, as men just getting to the bag, but we got to get to the kids. You know what I
you got to
mean?
get
Like
to
you
the
can be
kids.
successful, like Kev was saying, you can be successful, but because you've been successful, I have weekends off. And my Saturday, I ain't doing nothing. I ain't doing no reports. Don't even call me. This is my time with my family.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
mean, like you have to, if you have that financial literacy, you're able to position your life around making it work for you. And if family's at the top of that list, then that's all going to fall in line. And I have a couple friends that I know growing up was like, their parents was, rich, riding around in Benzes, but they was never at the house. So it's like, I don't know who my dad is unless we on vacation or unless it's Christmas. And it's good to be able to provide for your kids. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I think men is protect and provide. But I was telling my brother the other day, it's also love and support. Like love, like being intentional that I care about you. I can put this workload down just to spend time with you and spend time with you and your siblings and you and your mama, like things like that. That's the foundation of it. So just navigating that can be tough, right? Because we got to get the bag no matter what. But at the
Yeah.
end of the
Yeah.
day, your kids ain't gonna remember the bag. They gonna remember
Right.
Dad came to my game. Dad sat down and read with me.
Yeah.
Dad dropped me off at the library on Saturday or Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Barnes and Noble.
They got the
I
comfy
think it's just
couches and stuff.
phenomenal. Yeah.
And I've
That's
always
real.
told
That's
people
real.
that they won't remember a damn bill. They won't remember
Yep.
a dollar. They won't remember
Nothing.
a toy. They'll say my dad got me toys, but I've never known a man who loved his dad for the money he spent. Most of them don't. Most
Never.
kids don't remember the money. They remember the moments
Yep.
and the gifts and the coaching and the teaching and the nurturing and the
Mm-hmm.
protect. Like they remember dad being present and involved,
Yeah.
and that's important. And I think reading is one of the easiest and most beneficial ways that a dad can
Mm-hmm.
involve himself in not only in the education but in the psyche and the growth of confidence and
Yeah.
self-worth and self-value, and it just it's exponentially much more important than most of the shit we spend our time doing.
100%.
So
That's something I got to say to y'all, man, because y'all Juneteenth episode was special. I listened to it with my son when y'all did it. It was phenomenal.
Appreciate
And
that.
appreciate that.
I want to plug that if y'all tuning in and have a listen, go back and listen to it. But the thing about it is when we're talking about being free, Reading is that,
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
putting ideas, theories, thoughts. Like I taught my son Swahili by reading a book
Mm.
to him about it. Like I
Wow.
always was like, I want to tap into a African dialect because that's where I'm from. That's where my people from. I did my ancestry. I was like Nigeria. Okay, what's the language there? So I never would have known that without having the understanding of what this language is, or what's the history of our people, what's the history of our culture. And I think education, especially when we talking about American schools, they ain't going back to Africa. They're going to Martin Luther
No.
King. They might hit you with a Rosa Parks. So
Mhm.
being able to educate your children to understanding their cultural identity, that's what these books bring. So
Huge.
Mhm.
Huge.
so for me, it's like that's wealth in itself. That's more valuable
Mhm.
than a dollar that I can earn. I can teach my son like a life lesson. My dad taught me Swahili. Now you can teach your children this. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
that to me, that's something that's very valuable, because the books open up the conversations and the give these children the intellectual thought to start to understand who they are, where they come from, what they can be.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's the key to everything.
Absolutely.
Information, education, all of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, we have to, like I said, this add that importance, and it has to be, like I said, in our everyday lives. Like, starts with the conversations we have with our children, like you said, and what are we doing with that little bit of idle time?
Hmm.
So like there's so many different ways you could spill the game to them, even with the limited time that you have. Bouncing to and from work and getting
Yep.
here and getting this done, and what I'm saying, is it music that you listening to in the car, or what I'm saying, like,
Podcast,
what are
Fatherhood
the
Village.
exactly
Throw that on.
podcasts? You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? When you
Yeah.
dressing them for school,
Yep.
what are y'all talking about? What are
Yeah.
what are their eyes, setting on? You, like you said, a Kev's crib. He has letters and words all over the
Yep.
walls. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? When they go to sleep, when they wake up, when they chilling, like they see these things, and
Yeah.
it sets off things that we may not know about. Like I said, and the
Right.
different interests that they may or may not have. Like, we have to, like I said, we had to surround them, and create that environment for them, and just let
Absolutely.
it happen naturally.
And
So
Absolutely.
and I think the key to that, and what I found for me, and what I found for my son, and I think that you've discovered about your son, even with the Pokemon, is figuring out what they want to read, and
Hmm.
filling them up with so much of it that they're like, okay, I've exhausted this. What else is there? Right?
yeah,
When reading becomes their culture, it might start in a place that we find silly. We might find it frivolous or stupid. My
Yeah.
my son reads. He used to read the baby books when he was 2, and he exceeded. And then he started reading these David books. It's this badass little kid David that always gets in trouble. And he,
I remember you talking about that.
yeah, and he had the whole David series, and David, a motherfucker, David, bad dude. But
Wow.
while I'm like, I'm tired of these baby books. Okay, you're too old for those. Let's move on. Okay, here, find a new series. Okay, you read all of David. You own the whole David series. Next,
Yeah.
and gradually he finds something new he likes, and he finds a new challenge in reading,
Mm.
until eventually he looks up and he's like, wait a minute, I read all these different genres. I read all of these different types of books. He's developed his own love for reading. Now
Wow.
he's reading. He went from Baby David to National Geographic. Like, okay,
Wow.
Mm.
this book's about
Yeah.
arachnids. Here you go. Tell me all about the spiders. Tell me all about the
Wow.
sharks, the lions, the cheetahs, the tigers. And so he reads the National Geographic books. But it started with
Yeah.
them stupid baby books, or the stupid Pokemon, or the stupid comic books. Right.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it has to start somewhere. And as fathers, we have to figure out, not just for reading, but for everything. Man, what does your
Hmm.
kid want? Let them explore their wants to such a degree that they exhaust them, and they pick up another want, or they pick up another
Absolutely.
curiosity. And pretty soon you look back and you're like, man, I got a whole catalog. I got a plethora of things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And that's how they discover their own greatness. And so,
Yeah.
to your point, man, it's just about trying to figure out how to give it to them in a way that they want it. Right. Because your mama can make you eat peas,
Yep.
or you could just get tired of carrots and be like, fuck, let me go on and try these damn peas over here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you realize you like certain things, and
Yeah.
so it's just about that. So man, I appreciate brothers like you doing what you're
Hey,
doing,
man. We all doing
Yes,
it.
sir.
Y'all doing it
contributing to
too,
these young
man.
black minds, man. It's too
Yes,
important,
sir.
man. We need more people like you,
Valuable.
brother. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Great discussion, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Rube, thank you for joining us, man. This
Man,
was a
honor.
bunch of gems
Honor.
dropped right here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. I
yeah.
appreciate it, man. Just if y'all could follow me on Instagram at Watson Family Lit. That's my page, Watson Family Lit on Instagram. Definitely releasing a couple additional things with my book. Check out my book on Amazon, Friendly Skies and Sunny Days. And man, continue to be great in what y'all do, man. Like for sure.
Before we go, what age group is the book for?
So my book is for kindergarten through fourth graders. So,
Okay.
if your son is like 9, 10, 11, or your daughter, it may not be for you. I write children's books based on my kid's age, but
My son's 7. He'll take
yeah.
it.
Oh no, he wouldn't.
My son's 7. It probably right up his alley. So we're gonna check it
Yeah,
out.
it probably be up his alley. The cutoff is like 9, 10. I've read it a couple classrooms, but man, it's just a phenomenal experience just to speak with y'all brothers, man, for real.
The pleasure's all ours, man. This is great. This is great. Did I get the link right below?
You got it. I see it.
Hey, y'all make it happen, man. Hit that follow. Y'all check Rube out, man, and what he's doing. And like I said, that was the second book. The first one was titled what? What was the
Where's
title
My
of the first
Grandpa?
book?
And that's a book about family history written about my daughter who never met my father. He passed away. And she just wanted to know her family history. She wanted to know who he was. So definitely check that out too.
Oh yeah. We're gonna do that. We're gonna leave a link in the description, and I'm gonna grab both.
I appreciate that, man.
They love new books. Yeah, so it'll do me something great to support you, man. So
the whole collection.
Absolutely.
That's what Kev said.
Oh, yeah.
Grab the whole collection.
We're gonna do that. Right, get the whole pack.
I'm definitely gonna make my purchase, man. I respect everything you're doing. We appreciate you, brother.
That. Likewise, man.
Absolutely. Hey, man, that concludes today's episode. Please continue to support the channel. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, share our content, man. We got more coming on the way. We're still on Anchor. We're still on Spotify, streaming the audio version of all our podcasts. So, hook us up, man. Support, review, give us ratings. We're trying to spread our word, our information, these same conversations, to everyone. Everyone needs to get something from this, man. So without further ado, man, it's Dale Holloway. That's Kev Hick. Peace and love.
Peace and love.